Today we're going back to the super budget, pure performance kind of builds because this gaming PC only cost me $150, and today I'm going to show you what's all inside, and then of course we're going to benchmark it. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to Zach's Tech Turf. Today I'm going to be showing you this, I'm not going to lie, pretty baller $150 gaming PC build. I'm going to show you where I got all the parts and how much I paid for them, and then we're going to benchmark it. And if you're new here and you want to see more PC building or benchmarking videos, then hit that subscribe button down below and also that notification bell. That way you never miss an episode. But before we get into it, let me quickly pay some bills. NordVPN is one of the highest rated VPNs or virtual private networks that allow you to browse the internet privately, securely, and with no history logs whatsoever. It's super easy to use. All you do is select which server from around the world you want to connect to, and you're done. Enjoy clutch features like double VPN protection for extra security, an internet kill switch for the very rare time the VPN disconnects, super fast peer-to-peer downloads, and unlimited bandwidth for just above $3 a month if you sign up for 2 years. I actually signed up for a year of NordVPN at full retail price way before they hooked me up with a referral link and a discount code for you guys, so I obviously recommend them as my go-to VPN service. Head on over to nordvpn.com/Zach or click the first link in the description to learn more. Alright, so first and foremost, this OEM desktop may look a little bit familiar to you if you've been watching the channel for a while. Shout out to you if you actually remember this from like 10 months ago. But yeah, I picked up this entire desktop for only $50 off the Mercari app, which is a really good deal. This desktop came packed with a 4-core and 4-thread i5-2320, which boosts up to 3.3 GHz. It came with a single 4GB RAM stick, which I actually sold for $10 right after I initially bought it. And there was even a 120GB Samsung 840 EVO SSD. The i5-2320 is certainly not the latest and greatest CPU. This is a slightly lower end version than the super popular i5-2400, but as you're about to see, it can still handle gaming here in 2019. As far as the RAM goes, like I said, I did sell the original 4GB stick for $10, and then I ended up picking up an 8GB stick for $20, so according to my calculations and in theory, I paid $10 total for 8GB of RAM. Moving on through the parts list, next up we have the graphics card, and I decided to go with the GTX 770 that I recently bought off a coworker and featured in a previous video, and for this one I only ended up paying $40. $40 is about the price that you would find used off eBay. I wouldn't specifically hunt out for a 770 specifically, but this deal just kind of fell into my lap, so that's why I went with it. Next up is the power supply, and the 770 definitely needs more power than the original PSU that came with this build, so I decided to upgrade to a $40 new 550 watt EVGA N1. I've been using this power supply in my last few builds lately, and you could definitely find a slightly better deal on the used market, but for $40 brand new with a guarantee that it works, I'm pretty happy about it. And finally, the last upgrade I did was for storage, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually originally bought this entire desktop purely because it had the SSD in there, so that's definitely where our operating system is gonna go, but I decided to also throw in a 500GB Western Digital Blue HDD for a little bit more storage, and I found that for $10 used off Mercari. This decision will need to be based off your personal storage needs. 500GB for data and games may be plenty for some of you, but for others, you'll need to upgrade to a beefy 1TB or even 2TB hard drive. With that out of the way, here's what the entire parts and upgrades list is looking like, and as you can see from this sexy AF animation that my editor has been doing lately, this entire build only cost me exactly $150 after you factor in that I sold that one 4GB RAM stick. As always with the parts list out of the way, it's now time to benchmark it, and I actually just upgraded my benchmarking monitor, which you're about to see in an upcoming video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And just as a quick little disclaimer, the settings that you're about to see for each games are the settings that I would personally use if this was my system, but you can always tweak those to your liking. The first game up was the much dreaded Fortnite, and for this one I put the settings at 1080p and low with a far view distance and got an average of 133 frames per second. Keep in mind that if you're gaming on a 60Hz monitor, you'll easily want to crank this up to medium or high and cap the frame rate, but my new benchmarking monitor is 144Hz, so that's why I went with these settings. The next game up was Apex Legends, another game that I absolutely dread benchmarking, and in 1080p and low settings I averaged 70 frames per second, and this one was actually very smooth and played quite nicely if I do say so myself. Following that, I fired up PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and in 1080p and low settings with a far view distance just like Fortnite, I averaged 82 frames per second. PUBG is definitely a very CPU demanding game, so that's why I got these very low 1% and 0.1% lows, but once again, if you cap the frame rate at 60 FPS, you get a little bit better results. Counter-Strike Global Offensive followed up next, and in 1080p and medium settings with FXAA turned on, I got a stupid high average of 148 frames per second. If you guys want to see me benchmark other games, by the way, a and not the same normal lineup, please let me know down in the comments section. Sticking with our usual order of games though, Rainbow Six Siege followed up next, and with the built-in benchmarking tool in 1080p and medium settings, this $150 system averaged an impressive 115 frames per second. Getting into the tougher to run games, I fired up Far Cry New Dawn, and this one really surprised me because at 1080p and low settings I got right on the money at 60 FPS. If you guys have been watching my videos for the past couple of months, you'll know that this benchmark is extremely difficult for these budget systems to hit 60 FPS, so I was definitely happy with this one. Following that, I tested Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and in 1080p and low settings I only got an average of 41. For this one, you might want to drop it to 720p, but the reason why this one is low is because our CPU was definitely bottlenecking the system here, as this is a very CPU demanding title. And you wrap up our benchmarking run with another CPU demanding game. Battlefield 5 followed up next, and in 1080p and low settings I got an average of 41 frames per second, and this was indeed during an online match, which is even heavier on the CPU. With the results out of the way, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty dang excited about this build. For just $150, this system will at least allow you to play any of the latest titles in 1080p, provided you can handle a little under 60 FPS for those really demanding games. But yeah, I think this delivers a ton of value. One thing to note is that the GTX 770 was getting a little hot in there as it was creeping up into the low 80 degrees Celsius, and as you can see here, there's only one fan on this case, and it's an intake fan in the back, which obviously isn't that great of a setup. I personally wouldn't worry too much about it, but it's definitely something to be aware of if you're building in this exact case and you're looking for a known warm running graphics card or CPU. Overall though, for $150, I think this system would be pretty tough to beat in terms of price to performance, and all of these parts were found on pretty normal deals and no once in a lifetime finds or anything like that. Well, there you have it. That wraps up my used $150 gaming PC build guide that can handle all of the latest titles in 1080p. As always, drop a comment down below about what you're thinking about this build or what you would personally do to change it. After that, feel free to head on over to one of these two videos if you haven't seen them yet, and definitely hit that subscribe button because coming up next, we're checking out a budget gaming monitor that's pretty impressive. You don't want to miss that video.